Share screen.
Okay.
Ravi, unmarried? I don't understand.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, Larry. Prasan.
Hi.
Hi, Faith, June, Shannon, Roland,
Hello. Hello. Hello.
whole side.
Estoy aquí. Aquí te dice lo que. Dos congas en disputa, la del Yayabo y Pueblo Nuevo. Pueblo Nuevo hizo lo indecible para que la del Yayabo no saliera ese año de carnaval, pero la del Yayabo salió y, como dice el estribillo, a Pueblo Nuevo lo mató y hasta Oriente llegó. El que no ha oído la original de la Riverside Drive. ¿Ok?
Okay, okay.
I'll check what she did. How about you? Yeah. Yeah. All right, no problem. Yeah, good night. So, almost everybody, Val?
Yes, I think we can make a start.
You think you can make a start? All right.
Yes.
Okay,
You
let's
have a
see.
good crew and they'll fall in.
All right. Noel, you're here, right?
If you can hear me,
Yeah, can hear you.
okay. I can't see myself, but so I don't know if my camera's on or not.
Well, the cam is not on because we're not seeing you.
It is not on.
Okay, so where do I have to go? Where do I have to?
Bottom left, you should see your camera. Bottom left of the screen. Check it.
Okay,
You see a mic and a camera there?
okay,
Right.
I'm on.
So you just,
Okay, good deal.
All right.
there you are.
Okay.
Perfect, perfect.
All right. So, okay, class, that person there, Lowell, who looks like a seasoned sailor. But,
Only 3 times. Only 3 times.
yeah. Well, Lowell is a retired professor. Right? He's still a professor. He's retired from University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras campus, where he worked in theater and performance and as a scholar. Right? He ran the graduate department for just before he retired. He's well known for his work in Carnival and his interest in Carnival throughout the Americas. All right. As a scholar, he is published in several journals, and he in fact is the editor of a very important Caribbean journal, which if you don't know about it, you should go and look it up and try and find it. It's called Sargasso. He is the founding editor. I don't think he's editing it at this point in time, but he's the founder.
No longer. Yeah.
You're still on it.
I'm still on the board, but I no longer edit.
All right, okay. It's called Sargasso, some very important articles on the Caribbean culture. And most of them in 2 languages, sometimes in 3. English, Spanish, of course, English, and sometimes in French as well. Okay, these are just a couple of the issues devoted to Caribbean culture. So that was an important initiative on his part. He's also the author of a book on the Gigantes, which is what we'll be talking about today. And more, of course, on masks in the Caribbean. It's called An Archipelago of Caribbean Masks. Right? I think I included it in my bibliography for this module. So you have all the references there. All right, so apart from his scholarship, his work as a scholar, he's a performer, theater artist, mask maker. And I mean, we've been co-conspirators on a number of projects to bring our universities together, student exchanges and that kind of thing, right? So he's a great friend and resource for the work that we're doing, okay? So I'd like us, Laurel, this is our group. We have about, 18 of us, all right? Velos there is his name is actually Valentine Jerry. He's the coordinator of the course, all right? And I sent you an outline. We've just finished the module on, papier-mâché.
Papier-mâché.
Okay, papier-mâché. But we have our participants here from all over the Caribbean and different parts of the world. We have some from US, from UK, and the rest are Trinidadians, all right? All in all, about 18 of us, okay? So we're anxiously awaiting your presentation. You'll be here for about, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we'll have the second presentation, and that should complete what we're doing today. I had said in my description of this part of the course that our focus in traditional masks in this session is on the art of the masquerade. We have 3 sessions. The first one dealt with the spirituality, the ancestral connections of the masquerade, which are the roots of Caribbean masquerade. And this one focuses on the art that is created out of, that is the masquerade and that is created out of the masquerade, okay? So that's where we are today. So Lowell, thanks for being here, right?
Well, I'm very glad to be invited. So for me, it's always difficult to start these things because you're seeing me for the first time and you're taking your initial impressions, and I'm seeing you for the first time, taking initial impressions. And I think that particularly for me, I have to tell you just a little bit about why I am physically, geographically here in where I am right now, which is Vieques, Puerto Rico. And Vieques is a small island, about 9,000 people, off the coast of Puerto Rico. And for years, it was most important as the major bombing area for the US Navy in the world. More ground bombs were dropped on Vieques probably than were dropped by the United States during World War II. Okay, but at the end, beginning in 1999, a major push started to move the Navy out of Puerto Rico, and by 2004, they were gone with many promises. They were going to clean the beaches, they were going to eliminate the bombs, they were going to do all kinds of things to renovate, create a resurgence in Vieques. And you can imagine, since you can always trust the US Navy, that virtually none of that took place. Okay, so so I live in Vieques, and Vieques has, and I've been in Vieques now for almost 25 years, living part-time here, full-time in Puerto Rico, in my house that's next to the university. But since I've retired, we've moved full-time to Vieques and have been here since that time. But I've lived in Puerto Rico in general for the last 45 years. It's the only place I've lived. It's not my temporary or part-time or even I've never thought of any other place of living during that period of time. And during that period of time as well, I've done, for the most part, not as an act of obligation, but as a means of existing, of breathing, of living, integrating myself into particularly Puerto Rican theater, but also into the life of the traditional culture in Vieques, and particularly into the life of the community of Luisa. And it's variously called. It's called Luisa Aldea. It's called Piñones Luisa. But the town of Luisa is the sede, the seat of the fiestas of Santiago Apostol, St. James. And these take place the day of St. James, the day of Santiago is the 25th of July. And the fiestas of Santiago are the 26th, the 27th, and the 28th. And there is a procession on each one of those days. People carry the saint, and around the saint dance various festive traditional characters for about 3 miles, taking the saint from the town to the place where it was discovered and back again. Okay? And that's the real core of what are these fiestas. And it's the core and what I would call perhaps the most important cultural event in all of Puerto Rico. Luisa is a traditional, the Afro-Boricua, Afro-Puerto Rican community. It lived for up until really the 1940s and 50s. It lived in relative isolation from the rest of Puerto Rico. And since that time, it's become increasingly integrated, but it has maintained its fiestas and its particular tradition. I first visited Luisa on one of my first trips to Puerto Rico in 1975. And since that time, I've been going back almost annually. And since 1995, I've carried out a continuous research project in Luisa during the fiestas, and have missed only 1 year. And that is the 2020, when there was in fact a procession, a symbolic procession, which in fact the procession took place from cars that passed along the route instead of marching with the saints. But I did not attend because I was locked down in in Vieques and could not attend. But this year, I presume in July, the fiestas will come back together again. Okay. Now, for me, coming from theater, coming from a background in mask making, coming from a background in performance, the most important element of the festives of Luisa have always been the mask of the Vejigante. Okay? This is a very simple Vejigante mask. And when we get to some PowerPoint, we'll see some very clear ones. But this particular mask, when you look at it, what you note is that as far as I know, it is the only Diablo trickster Vejigante from the Caribbean that is actually carved from a coconut husk. So the mask actually begins looking like this. Simple dried coconut husk. This one happens to be already cut and prepared for work, for artisan work. But then it moves to the second stage, where with a saw and knives, the sections and eyes are made. The horns are from what we call the penca, or really the center vine of the coconut frond. So that hard center vine of the coconut frond becomes then the horns. Now, the most simple version of the Vejigante mask usually has 3 horns, but I have Vejigantes that artisans have either given me or I've purchased that have as many as 21 horns. So there's no rule. They're not just three horns, and the versions are not simply this simple version. And the mask itself then just becomes a simple part of the extension of the face of the performer. So that you see then that the Vejigante moves with the mask. This is the version of the Vejigante, which is present, the only Vejigante that exists inside the Luisa and the Fiestas of Santiago Apóstol. There is another version of the Vejigante, which we'll be able to see later, which is from the city of Ponce, and it is a papier-mâché Vejigante with crests and horns and teeth and the very elaborate. But that Vejigante comes from a somewhat different tradition, and I'll repeat that the coconut husk mask, as far as I know, is the only mask of that nature in the Caribbean region. There are things that are similar. Sometimes they use other materials, such as the calabash to make masks with, but as a natural product, that's the nature of the beast. I bring that up at the very beginning simply because the Vejigante has been, from the first time I saw a Vejigante, my inspiration for doing all the other work that I've done with carnivals, with celebrations, with fiestas, with masks inside the Caribbean. That's the starting point, and that's the guiding principle. So that when I do mask workshops with, it doesn't matter whether it's with children, young people, or adults, it's always around that principle of starting with the viewpoint of what is the Vejigante. So with that kind of background, I'm gonna start then to go into slightly more formal presentation. Okay, but let me stop. Everybody with me? You're hearing me, you're understanding me, you're following me?
Yes, we are. We are.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Any questions at this point? I try to plan these things, but they never go as planned. So they just take their own direction. So if anytime you want, just just jump in. And I can speak at a number of different registers. In terms of this, I like to keep it very, what I'll call just the plain talking about it. But if you want to go to a different kind of high academic register, we can move to that as well. But I prefer this more conversational tone. But let me know if you've got any questions or notions or ideas, so that you can let me know. Okay. I'm going to cover some material that you've probably covered already, because we're going to look at things, and I think I'm going to be able to get my PowerPoint up here at some time or another, which will go through, do a visual summary of my book on Caribbean masks. But I just want to make a couple of bullet points as we start out here. I'm talking now more about masks than I'm talking about carnival functions. Okay, so because it's not that I'm not interested in carnivals. Of course, I'm very interested in carnivals. I'm very interested in fiestas. Very interested in celebrations. But it's the mask that always forms that point of fascination. I just want to remind everybody that most mask functions are universal, even though the masks themselves may be highly local. Most of the functions are universal, and that's simply because the masks have been with us for thousands of years. We can't say precisely how many. Certainly for 20,000 years, people have been making and using masks, but perhaps for 50, perhaps for 100,000 years. Masks are part of the history of the human civilization. So they become a primary example of human creativity. Okay? Masks and mask making are bound to the very notions of being human, in particular to the notion of addressing others, whether those others are human or biological others. Masks allow us to protect, hide, cover, and restrict the gaze of others, because a mask lets you control what other people see. At the same time, they permit us to reveal and express, and like language, to symbolically represent ourselves as well as others. So the mask then becomes almost part of the human personality itself. Okay? Masks are also agents of transformation. A fish face opens to reveal a human face. A masculine mask shifts to the light and becomes feminine, or vice versa, or genderless altogether. A person plays a monster who is also a trickster diablo, who is also an ancestor, who is also that person in a complex and real social environment. An actor becomes a god, a king, a superhero, or a demented comic or tragic clown. So that act of transformation takes place always through the use of masks. The imagination accesses the collective memory inside us and throws up images unaccounted for by our conscious everyday experience. In Puerto Rico, we call these images vejigantes, because no one has been able to really say where that particular Diablo, trickster, monster image comes from. And the attempts to find it have always fallen short in one way or another. I prefer to leave it in that state of the imagination. Okay? We reinvent those images as masks carved from coconut husks or shaped around molds with paper mache. That's the process virtually everywhere. Okay. But these distinctions, the whole notion that masks do these different things, these distinctions are entirely porous. They overlap. And a mask that becomes strictly a mask to protect us can also become a mask of transformation, an aesthetic mask that takes on new dimensions. We've learned a lot about masks in the last several months, last 15 months. We've learned about this mask, of course, and everyone has become too familiar with this mask. And we wore it around for a while, but we weren't very satisfied with it because who wants a white or a pink or a blue hospital mask? So we started developing other forms, black masks, okay? Little dimension, little color, little bit of change on them to make it. And then we started saying, well, why not put symbols on them? I went to the University of Puerto Rico. Why shouldn't I have a mask that tells people that I'm Puerto Rican and that I went to the University of Puerto Rico? I taught there, so I've got a University of Puerto Rico mask. But maybe that's not quite enough. We want something that reflects our life in art as well. So suddenly we have an expressionist painting that becomes the part of our array of masks. And suddenly we walk down the street and now people look at us and say, huh, what the fuck's that? Look at that. Okay, well, that's from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, man. Okay, and you've got that. Okay, or some people might want to search their own cultural history and go back to Abbey Road and the Beatles so that you can shout out to the world I'll have to read it because and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Okay, so you've got the Beatles, but for me, given my life, perhaps the most important and most identifying mask is this one. Simply because, particularly after Hurricane Maria and the devastation wrought on Puerto Rico, people think that hurricanes are bad. Hurricanes aren't bad. Governments are bad. The disaster of Maria is not the hurricane. The disaster of Maria was not the Category 5 hurricane. The disaster was the government was so unprepared for a hurricane that we remained on Vieques, but also on the majority of the island of Puerto Rico for up to 6, 7, 8 months without electricity. So living off portable generators, living off what we could create for ourselves because there was no electricity. So suddenly the government, the hurricane came, of course, but then the government abandoned us. And certainly our supposed parent government, the Mr. Trump's United States, abandoned us as well. And so suddenly Puerto Rico is left adrift, and its red, white, and blue flag became what for me should be the true colors of the Puerto Rican flag, which are those colors, as opposed to red, white, and blue, because they represent what is the true and continuing current state of Puerto Rico, the Hurricane Maria and the pandemic. Okay, you'll excuse my editorializing because I can't escape it. I have that disease which Raul and others share of the retired professor who has the talking sickness. But in any event, that's part of it. Okay, so in any case, these masks became symbolic of more than simply protecting us from coronavirus. Something that will help us get through COVID. They became acts of identity, signifying acts that express who we are behind the mask, through the mask. And it seems to me that that's particularly important. Okay, so all of the masks then that we look at somehow or another assume specific identities of one kind or another. So we have processes then of hiding and revealing, protecting and expressing, representing and transforming. We have utilitarian masks, we have theatrical masks, we have what I will call spirit masks, but they all truly share the same root. And that is they have what that same sense of origin inside the human spirit and the human imagination. Regardless of whether they protect us, allow us to represent the other, or whether they are in fact for acts of transformation. Okay, so there that. And masks can be repressive. We know that. But the same mask that can be repressive in one situation, let's think about the burqa that women have to wear or had to wear in Afghanistan, for example, being an act of repression, but put it beside what we would call the hood or the capucha of the political protester, and you see that one is repressive, the other is liberating. So that more important, it seems to me that masks are, again, for acts of transformation, acts of liberation, and I find these creative and liberating functions to be far more interesting than the repressive ones. So let me then, I'm using a term I like a lot, a term I really can't use when I'm speaking, and I do this more frequently in Spanish than in English, than I'm speaking in Spanish, and that is spirit masks. And what are spirit masks then? How are they different from theater masks or from strictly utilitarian masks? Well, maybe I should ask you that question. Since you've been studying this, what are spirit masks? Anyone want to attempt an answer? Okay, so so I'll just keep talking.
Hold on. I see Elise is trying to answer, but she's muted. Elise, you're muted.
All right. So my interpretation of spirit mask would be. You hear me now? Yeah.
Yep,
all right.
yep.
So what my interpretation of what spirit mask would be more ritualistic, let me say, tool used in like more religious or spiritual gathering performance, where, like we just say, they pray into the sun god, and in order to embody that spirit or that entity in which they're trying to entertain or praise or what may be, that they would assume the identity of that entity that they're trying to portray, or in a feeling your own spirituality on a level that you can't do with your face in particular, well, depending on the religion. So that's my interpretation.
Okay, perfect. No, I think that whole the notion of connecting, right? The notion of connecting, and what are we connecting with? We're connecting with something we can't access without the mask, right? Or something we normally can't access without the mask. So it may be that we're connecting with ancestors. It may be that we're connecting with something somewhat more concrete, like a tradition, an idea, a history, a story. But the spirit masks allow us to connect in some way or another and assume the dimensions, perhaps the personality, certainly the energy and force of something else, someone else, and usually someone else that has preceded us. We're standing on the shoulders of someone, but we're also wearing their mask or wearing their face. Okay, so spirit masks allow us to access that that dimension or that person. So yes, the great majority, not all, but the great majority of what we can call festival masks or the masks of festival arts, they are in fact spirit masks because they connect us with some other, if not individual, at least some other, let's call it state of being. They allow us to they enter into what might be called a zone, a spiritual zone, a creative zone. It's not unlike the zone that an actor enters into on stage when he or she assumes a different personality. But it seems to me that the sense is even more profound when it takes place through the use of a mask. So that's a perfect answer. Anyone else want to elaborate on that any further?
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm working through some ideas at the moment.
Good.
Right?
Well, I'm sorry, Elise, you're from where? From Trinidad?
Yes.
Okay, and Ria, you're from?
I'm from Tobago. I live in
Okay.
Tobago, right? The pretty
okay.
of the islands. So I'm working through some of the things that you've been saying, and I have a challenge with the distinction of the spirit mask, because I see all the masks as spirit masks. In that, it started by saying most mask functions are universal. And then I consider that in terms of realist approaches, and in particular, cultural realist. And then I got to the idea that in our performance of the mass, we seem to respect our differences more. And that universal application seems to be more accepting of cultural relativist approaches to how we are and how we be and how we, even if you're looking at human rights, what are the differences, that sort of thing, right? Then I got to we are more accepting of our performance in the mass than our performances in our human avatars. Look, I think Alana is going, yeah. And in the covering, there is a greater acceptance for some reason. And I think that acceptance is spirit. So whether it's the transformation mass, the theater mass, to me, it's all a spirit mass. So that thing that you're describing as the spirit mass, I think there's a different word for it. I just don't know if it exists in the English language. So yeah, some ideas.
No, I think that's wonderful, because I may be making an artificial distinction, keeping theater masks away from what I'm calling spirit masks, without reasonable justification, to keep the, let's say, the masks. And the first example that comes to mind, excuse me, is simply that I'm thinking about Jean Genet's the play The Blacks, keeping those masks away from cardboard spirit masks used in festivals in the Caribbean, maybe a long way away. Secondly, the thing I really appreciate, and what you've really given me something to think about, is the fact that perhaps frequently I become so involved in the study and the aesthetics and the production of masks that I forget about the social realities that exist behind the masks, and that perhaps the unmasked face is going to be, to a certain extent, the more have greater impact than the mask itself. That the mask, to a certain extent, makes the face, the transforms the face in a way that makes it acceptable, and that the unmasked face becomes perhaps somewhat more, perhaps we can say, intimidating. So I don't know, but that I'm intrigued by your comment. I'm intrigued also by Alana. I don't know if she had a knife in her hand or what she was doing, but but she seemed to respond immediately to your comment. She's not responding now, so okay. So let's see. Do you think we can change to the, unless you have other comments, things, can we change to the PowerPoint and see some masks?
Excuse.
Uh-huh.
Hi. I was wondering, based on what Ria was saying, right? Are there different? Oh, I'm from
Excuse me,
Trinidad, by
who's
the way.
speaking? Who's speaking?
Christy Marie.
Where? Okay, yes, I'm sorry. Yes,
Hi.
please.
I was wondering, can there be different types of spirit masks? If it is that we recognize that most masks have a universal function. I was wondering.
I assume there can be, yes, because inside every function, there are always there are always elements that are either sacred or profane, the religious or secular, and some masks, even though will be spirit masks, even though their function is more secular than religious, more profane than sacred. So they still permit connection, transmission of knowledge. They still permit a way of transformation, even if they lack that, what was earlier called, I think by Elise, a spiritual or the quality. So yes, I think inside spiritual, inside the notion of spirit masks, there, it's not a unified, it's not a consolidated notion. I think there's a diversity of notions inside or under the umbrella of the spirit mask. Is that?
That was all the time.
What?
That's
Okay.
just
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. May I ask something based on what
Sure.
you just said? So in that initial comment that you made, I think before Ria made hers, I don't want to say that there's this dichotomy between like theater masks and spirit masks, but there is definitely some distinction between the both, right? And the descriptive spirituality and like ancestral connection and stuff, we don't usually see that with theater masks, right? They exist for different reasons. So I think Elise initially said, spirit. What are the other things that account for that distinction between spirit masks and other masks? Is it that it's adjacent to different practices or rituals, or what are the other features surrounding that spirituality that, put spirit masks in a different cohort to other types of masks?
That's a question.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Sorry if I phrased it poorly.
Okay. I'm going to answer in a somewhat what perhaps roundabout form. Yeah, I have a very close friend and colleague who works almost strictly in papier-mâché, and who studied when she was very young with Jacques Lecoq, the French theater director and actor training. And so she does all of these magnificent papier-mâché face masks. Okay, and what she tries to capture, much like Lecoq, is to capture human attitudes, different human attitudes. What the face of the masked actor can express through one mask to another mask to another mask to another mask. And perhaps what I would say is that the difference between most the contemporary theater masks and spirit masks, if there is a difference, and let's admit that there's that these distinctions are porous and there is a certain degree of overlap here, is that the theater mask usually has the tendency to be psychological, to try to capture attitude as opposed to belief system. Usually tries to capture states of mind as opposed to what I might call states of being. So that the spirit mask, for the most part, is looking for the state of being more than the state of mind. Is looking more for the psychological or the attitude, as opposed to the what might be the connection to a past, or a connection to another world, or another state of being. So that would be my rapid response to that. However, and people seem to easily forget this, that until the Renaissance, in Europe, at least in the European tradition of theater, until the Renaissance, theater was a theater of masks. Tragic masks, comic masks, satyr masks. The theater was masks right up and into the Renaissance with the Commedia dell'arte, which continued the tradition of the Roman mimes and the Roman masks. So it's only really in the Renaissance that the theater begins to lose its masked characteristic, and perhaps then loses the part, at least, not all certainly, but part of least of its ritual or ritualized the format. But everything else we know about classical theaters, and this applies to the Western tradition, it also applies to India, it also applies to China and Japan and Balinese theater. These are theaters of masks. It applies to African theater as well. The mask becomes a part of the representation and the tradition until at least in Europe, the Renaissance, and in many places, the theater maintains that mask characteristic right up into the 19th or early 20th century, when finally mask no longer plays as significant a role in the Asian or African theater. So suddenly the mask has been a theatrical mask throughout centuries as well, not only a spirit mask, but also a mask of representation, because theater itself was perhaps an act of spirit as well up to that point. But I'll leave you with that. Wow, are you there somewhere?
Hi, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, I'm supposed to be able to access a PowerPoint here somehow, but I'm not certain how I can do that. So I'm going to need some help from someone.
Just open it on your side, on your computer. You hear me? Open the computer. Open the PowerPoint on your computer. Is it open already? Open the file on your computer.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Right. Then you're going to go to share screen on the Zoom.
Okay.
See the button that's marked share screen?
Okay.
Now you should see the PowerPoint in a window opened up there, in a sub window. Are you seeing it?
Okay.
And click on the PowerPoint and then click share, and we should see it. Got that?
Okay.
Right, good. Yes.
There we are. Okay, so we're down here for some reason on the, let's get this up to, okay, so, and, okay, so the that happens to be the title of my most recent book, which is an archipelago of Caribbean masks. And I want to show you. I showed you one Behigante here, which is from Luisa, Puerto Rico, and I want to show you a second Behigante, which is more elaborate, made of paper mache, and it comes from Carnival in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Okay, this is one of the most magnificent examples of that particular type of Behigante that I've ever seen. And in fact, this was to be the cover photo of the book. This is what I had chosen as the cover photo of the book, An Archipelago of Caribbean Masks. However, that is not the cover photo. This is the cover photo of of Caribbean Masks. And this is the cover photo simply because this is from 2018, the year after Hurricane Maria. And it reflects, in a sense, what happened in Luisa and the fact that after the devastation, particularly in Luisa, Puerto Rico, Afro-Puerto Rican community, somewhat isolated from the San Juan metropolitan area, they did not have light for 8 months. And yet, in July of 2018, there were fiestas, because the fiestas are controlled not by the municipality, not by the state, they are controlled by the community. And so the people, the fiestas, were in the streets. And as always, there are changes. Behigantes are played by men. Traditionally, only men play the Behigante. And quite obviously, this is not a man playing a Behigante. This particular woman, she didn't want me to photograph her. She didn't want me to, she tried to, I asked her to put the mask back on and she wouldn't do it. Because she was end of the last procession, everybody's worn out, everybody's going home. I'm saying, but put the mask back on. And she said, oh. And so I began snapping her like this, and it suddenly, and the designer and I saw this photo and we said, this has to be the cover photo, because she represents what's happening now and what's happening to the fiestas of Luisa. So she has a particular Behigante mask with her, and you begin to see part of the uniform, the costume, the mamuluca, as they call it, of the Behigante here, as well as her hood, which is not a COVID mask, but in fact is the part of her hood. Okay. Now I'm just going to snap another photo here, because I did workshops in Jacmel, the IT, with artisans from the beach, the beach of Jacmel, and Jacmel happens to be one of the most famous artist communities in the world, and particularly an artist community where there's lots and lots and lots of paper mache masks made, but they had never made masks out of common cardboard before. And so this is the mask that I made with them as part of the workshop, and we did a performance in in the hotel restaurant in the evening, and a Trinidadian, a brilliant Trinidadian photographer, the Maria Nunes, snapped that photo of me, in Jacmel, wearing that particular dragon mask. And the photo was so good that I, for the most part, decided to do no more the Behigante mask, or do no more the large dragon masks like that. But that, for me, is also a Behigante. Everything that I do, to a certain extent, is a Behigante, even if it's not strictly part of the Behigante tradition. Now, I just want to take you back a little bit, because what I said about the difference between universal functions of masks and what they represent. I've started traveling to Portugal, certainly not in the last 15 months I haven't, but to look at the pre-Christian winter festivals of northern and mountainous Portugal, and the masks they create there, are really quite stupendous. So so here you have an incident of those masks. I think I should be able to get something else going here. No, apparently that's as much as I can do. Okay, in terms of size, but these are wooden carved masks, and they reflect the characteristics that will appear in the Caribbean masks as well. Caribbean masks made out of paper mache. And I say universal because we sometimes forget to ask the question, what comes before certain masks? Okay, there's obviously a European influence on many carnival and festival masks in the Caribbean, undeniable. But what came before the European mask? And in many instances, we're going to find that the origins of many aspects of early European culture, particularly the pre-Christian European culture, are going to be derived from the occupation of the Moors of Southern Europe, and particularly Spain and Portugal. So to a certain extent, what we normally associate with European masks can also clearly be seen as the influence of Africa spreading through Europe, particularly in the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, 11th centuries, before the absolute domination of the Catholic Church over the majority of European culture. Okay. And now I return back to Hurricane Maria in September of 2017, and then the fiestas of Luisa in 2018, because not only did the young woman appear, but also a brand new Behigante mask appeared. These colors were previously unknown in the fiestas of Luisa. There were previously no black and white, the Behigantes in Luisa. And this is simply a Behigante that assumes the form, the traditional form of the character, but suddenly now the political comment of the era in which a pueblo, a people, has lost faith, all faith whatsoever, in its government and its ability to govern. Again, I return to the cover photo again, because that was from the same fiestas. As I look at these masks, all masks of the Caribbean, but also the masks particularly of the Luisa Puerto Rico, I'm always taking a look at the materials of construction. Instead of dividing masks by festival and festival and festival in the book, but also I think in my way of looking at things, my comparative analysis, I'm looking at the materials of construction. And so you see the materials that are natural and organic, like the coconut husk. You see, of course, the papier-mâché, which is the most universal mask-making material that there is. It is everywhere. From its journey from China through India to Europe, between roughly the 7th to the 10th centuries, to its traveling to the Caribbean, wherever. The papier-mâché is the most universal mask-making material. The wire screen that you see in masks in Trinidad, the Pierre Grenade has a wire screen mask. You see them in the Jean Canoe Players in Jamaica. They have wire screen masks And you particularly see them in the Puerto Rico, in the Luisa, in another town in Puerto Rico called Atillo, where the caballero, the fancy dressed Spanish gentleman, has a wire screen mask. But they're also in Haiti. They're also in Haiti. So we'll see some examples of that. Common cardboard is one of the most miraculous mask-making materials available. It is already a form of papier-mâché. So in a sense, it becomes enormously flexible, easy to use. Paint and makeup are another form. And finally, synthetics, plastic, goma, the commercial, the store-bought or ordered mask, the people who dress as Planet of the Apes, the Masters of the Universe, those kinds of masks. Particularly common, wolf masks, clown masks, particularly common in Puerto Rico and in Trinidad, as opposed to other places, because I think mainly because of internet access and media access, it makes those masks more appealing to young people than traditional masks. But that is again a particularly the magnificent the Gigante mask from Luisa, Puerto Rico, and it's a máscara de fuego, a fire mask, and it has the around 17 the horns, as well as a brilliantly painted face, and you can see other the gigantes around it, and we'll see a video later of that as well. And paper mache, I just took a quick representation of something that the magnificent the use of paper mache in Jacmel, the Haiti, and then again what you saw earlier, what in Puerto Rico se llama the cartón piedra, rock paper, rock cart, the durable, the papier mache of it turns into paper stone. Okay, and there's the wire screen mask from Puerto Rico, and that's for the caballero, the fancy dressed Spanish gentleman. It's a somewhat effeminate mask because of the blue eyes, the rosy cheeks, the red lips, and I presume that is a vision of the people of Luisa of the Spanish gentleman. Because you don't have to paint this mask white. It's aluminum or steel texture produces whiteness, and then with the red on top of it, you get the other characteristics. Okay, so. And that is wire screen in Jacmel, Haiti, and that happens to be the character of the Wandering Jew. And this is one of the standard characters of the carnival in Jacmel, Haiti. There are various forms of it, but they all wear wire screen masks. And this is what just regular common cardboard masks. And these are what are called, you can't see it precisely there because part of the word is blocked out. These are chaloskas. The chaloskas are named after a particular repressive, the police officer in Haiti in the early decades of the 20th century. He was the chief of police of the Port-au-Prince at the time of the US invasion in 1916. And his name was Charles Oscar. And he's been turned into a personality, a comparsa, a carnival trope with Charles Oscar and his lieutenants, who are the Chaloskas of Haiti. And this is another Carmen cardboard mask. This happens to be a Diablesse from Trinidad, and I offer it for very personal reasons because she took a workshop I offered in Trinidad. I don't remember any longer the year, whether it was the 2013 or 2014, when we did the Joe in Tunapuna with the University of West Indies Steel Band, and she marched with us with that mask, which was a product of a workshop that I gave, and it was a particularly memorable experience seeing her so magnificently turned out and playing the Diablesse in that. And as many of you from Trinidad have seen, the use of paint or makeup, body paint, and this again, Trinidad, the Tuesday Road March, Black Indians, the magnificent use of paint as face mask in that situation. And this is also shoe polish as face mask on one of the other exceptionally famous characters of Luisa Puerto Rico's the processions. And this is a loca. And this particular individual has a variety of this character, was played in various years, but the blackening of the face, the man cross-dressing as woman, blackening her face, and assuming both a comic and a ritual character is part of one of the four principal characters of the fiestas of Santiago Apóstol in Luisa, Puerto Rico. And that also from Trinidad, the synthetic mask, a rubber wolf's mask worn by one of the Blue Devils of Paraman during the old time carnival in Trinidad in 2013 or 2014. Slightly after that, in Ponce, Puerto Rico, during Carnival, the Carnival of Playa de Ponce, you have another synthetic mask, this time from the Game of Thrones. So but the synthetic rubberized, the plastic mask, has assumed a very important part in Caribbean carnivals, and I don't like it. Many people don't like it, but we have to come to terms with it, because saying you don't like it doesn't necessarily make it go away. And particularly young people seem to be moving towards the commercial masks as opposed to the artisan made masks. Okay, so now the organic materials: coconuts, plantain leaves, sisal, raffia, live boa constrictors, and animal skins. All of these things are elements that go into a certain kind of spirit mask and or a certain kind of mexicante. Again, this is another magnificent example of the mexicante in Luisa, Puerto Rico. And I used to make the joke, which I'll put in quotes in this particular context, that it's good to be a mexicante. Okay, the mexicante is the hero of the fiestas, not Santiago Apóstol, that little saint. He's not the hero. It's the mexicante who's the hero. It's the mexicante who has life, sensuality, power. He's sometimes described as one scholar described it as a sacred clown, but it's really not a sacred clown, because the mexicante is at the very heart of the community of Luisa. It is, in a sense, the symbol of a resistant community, a fighting community, that resists the society. And this mexicante is particularly known for its very sensuous and and long tongue, as well as its slightly bloody, individually carved teeth. The plantain leaf, the character from the carnival in Jacmel, Haiti, it strikes me as being particularly the interesting, in terms of its ability to use materials to capture the sense of the cimarrones, the marinage, and to bring it into the streets as a way of expressing the fight against the repression, again, a means of resistance, as does the use of sisal, these long fibers in this mask from Dominica. Again, in certain festivals, masks are disappearing. This sensei from Dominica, they used to wear a wire screen mask, but no longer does. So some masks are simply disappearing from the Caribbean, but the character itself, the sensei, is there, and once again, it represents the resistance and is a warrior-like character. And whether this is a mask or not will be up to you. For me, it is. These are live boa constrictors during the carnival in the Jacmel, Haiti. And the man spends the entire day in procession with them on his face. And again, it strikes me that this is a very particular form of spirit mask, which we may not like, but certainly has a form of, for him at least, connecting with his past and with current realities. Another mask we might not like is from the Villa de los Santos, Panama, which is the use of the real skin and head of a goat to create an animal skin horned goat mask. In construction and form, really quite brilliant, but the fact that it is result from the sacrifice of an animal might be objectionable. But again, okay, and now take a look. Jacmel is really from my point of view, the capital of paper mache in the Caribbean. The magnificent, the dragons, for example, these particular, the Couchon Creole, 2 children with motor oil smeared all over them, and the pigs' heads. The centipede, 10 people working together, spreading out through the procession throughout the entire town of Jacmel. The Zèle Maturan, the typical devil of the carnival. Their wings move back and forth. They have cords so that they can flap their wings as they move through the streets. And a similar and yet even more picturesque, and in some cases grotesque, the devil-like Behigante from the Dominican Republic. This is called a Diablo Coelho from the San Juan de la Maguana, Dominican Republic. And these are reproduced massively and mounted on stilts to go through the streets. There's a mask where, and you can see where the head would fit here, and the rest of the mask fits above on the shoulders of the mask maker, who will also be on stilts. And from the small boy here, you can see just exactly how large and how high that mask is going to go. And another in procession, similar mask, 2-headed, on stilts, extending perhaps 20 feet high during the procession of San Juan de la Maguana. and the masks, somewhat for comparison from particularly, that happens to be El Diablo Sucio Mayor from the La Villa de los Santos de Panama. And this, from my point of view, is here for contrast because it's different from most of the masks we've seen. There seems to be more European, more gargoyle-like representation, greater sense of a Christian devil inside these masks because of the nature of the horns, how they turn, because of the nature of the teeth, that this, to a certain extent, is the book of Revelations, brought to life in colonial form in Panama. The other Vejigantes, or the majority of them, strike me as being not particularly the Christian devils, but in fact Diablo tricksters. We might call them the more African inspired than European, but these seem to be particularly the Christian form. And you can see now, here's a Ponce, Vejigante, Diablo trickster, playing with the children, very amenable, very amigable, very the part of the nearly a more friendly as opposed to the terrorizing them. And that applies to almost all the Ponce Vejigantes, regardless of how elaborate their structures may be. And they do become very, very elaborate, but nothing that equals that kind of the Panamanian, the Diablo Sucio, the dirty devil. And this one, many of you should know, right? This is, of course, the Bookman. So you've seen the Bookman in traditional, in old-time carnival, and it's a particular tradition inside Trinidad. And this mask from Dominica, which I will also call a Vejigante of sorts, in Dominica, they seem to be experimenting in ways that they aren't in other islands and looking for more specifically the African-based forms. The masks themselves, I'll say this, the masks themselves in terms of their formation and painting seem to be a little bit more what we might call the rustic or the casero or amateur than other places. And yet what they're experimenting with and trying to do is really quite remarkable. Okay, and the counterpart to the Vejigante in Puerto Rico is the wire screen caballero. The wire screen, the fancy dressed Spanish gentleman. And there again, you have another example of that wire screen mask. But there you have wire screen masks as well in a more roots-like version from Jamaica, John Canoe. And it's a shame that John Canoe in Jamaica seems to be dying out almost entirely, that it appears only at certain times in certain places of the year and no longer has this kind of the character to it. Okay, but those are all, again, wire screen masks painted to assume other dimensions. And this is from the island of Carriacou in the Grenadines, where at carnival times they do something called the Shakespeare Mass, in which men dressed in wire screen masks and fancy dress costumes recite lines from Julius Caesar. And the person who recites best wins the competition and is able to beat his competitor with a whip. And they wear, again, wire screen masks. Much like the ones from Jamaica, much like the Pierre Grenade from the Trinidad Carnival, much like the the masks, such as this one from Haiti, in which you have the Saint Michael and the Archangel, all with wire screen masks that are not significantly different from the wire screen masks that we see throughout the rest of the Caribbean. And finally, this strikes me as an exceptionally elegant mask. It's from a character called the Viejo, the old man, or sometimes Loco, because there are locas, cross-dressed men, and locos, viejos, or old men in the fiestas of Luisa. And the one piece of cardboard, splattered with paint, eyes, and a hat, and you have a magnificent, and very elegant mask. But these are also common cardboard masks combined with paint. These are Indians in Haiti's carnival. So they have their cardboard headdresses painted with feathers, and their bodies painted, and then their raffia or sisal, the skirts around them, the marching through the streets of Jacmel. We're getting close to the end here. But also, paint takes on other functions. This is a particular comparsa of painted men from the Polo Barahona, Dominican Republic, very close to the Haitian border. It copies what happens in the Haitian carnivals as well, in which scantily clad men will paint their entire bodies and take to the streets. Okay? And let's see, we have, okay, and that's another use of paint. And that, well, from Trinidad, you'll recognize this immediately as a blue devil from Paraman in the streets with horns and blue paint. And finally, also from Trinidad, and we're going to be talking later about sailor mask. So there is a sailor from the Trinidad All-Stars, covered entirely with white powder. And as you know, if you've played sailor with Trinidad All-Stars, as I have on 3 different occasions, the powder flies continuously, and that's one of the results. Okay, and finally, the category of the synthetic masks. That's another old man from Puerto Rico, from Luisa. It is not supposed to happen, but these synthetic masks do still enter into the fiestas there. This is a Masters of the Universe mask. He's 20 feet tall, up on stilts in Dominica. And the stilt walking in Dominica is a particular trait. You see it in the Dominican Republic, you see it in many places, but I've never seen it done with the consistency of Dominica Carnival, the use of stilt walking. And then finally the wolf mask, again, a rubberized or plastic mask from the Playa de Ponce in Puerto Rico. But rubberized masks will not go away simply because you might wish them to. They've become too important, too much of a factor in Carnival. And so this, to a certain extent, is one of, not the only, but one of the contemporary Vejigantes of at least Carnival in Ponce, Puerto Rico. The final group are masks that many of them I do in workshops with children, young people, and adults, always inspired by Vejigantes. This is from a workshop I did in Vieques 2009, and that young man is 9 years old.
Hi, Roll, I'm in.
Hello. Okay. That happens to be a common cardboard mask as well. And sometimes you begin to question what's made of cardboard and what's made of porcelain, for example, just because of the flexibility of cardboard as a mask making material. And that, just to give you a closing shot of the photographer, me in front of an oncoming procession in the Playa de Ponce, in the festival of Vejigantes in Puerto Rico. And that is the close of the PowerPoint, with, again, the mask I started with, that particular Vejigante. Okay, so we're done with the PowerPoint and I have to stop share. Okay, so we're back here with you. That took longer than I thought. I hope you haven't, I didn't exhaust you entirely in the process. Are there comments, questions? Is everybody awake still? I didn't fall asleep, so I presumably you didn't fall asleep either. Okay, Raul, do you have something to say? I can't hear you.
I say it's a lot more than what we asked for, not in terms of time, but in terms of substance.
Okay.
Well,
I generalize the Vejigante for a number of different reasons, because the Vejigante is a word, it's a Spanish word. Its closest and earliest approximation is something called Bojiganga, which appears in Don Quixote de Cervantes, which is a character who isn't a gesture, but is like a clown, and who wears a particular kind of hat and has this fancy dress costume and carries around large either pig or cow bladders. And the pig or cow bladders can be filled with air, they can be filled with water, they can be filled with urine, they can be filled with feces, but they trick people and they beat them with these bladders. In Spanish, a bladder, that was in Cervantes, that was the Bojiganga, okay? But that bladder is a vejiga in Spanish. And the vejiga is the basis of the word Vejigante. So the word comes into the Puerto Rican lexicon in the early 18th century then as Vejigante. But of course, it's not that it's only a word. Words are more than only something, but it classifies it as somehow or another direct related to the Bojiganga, the Bahigas, Spanish lexicon, Vejigante. And the Vejigantes, particularly of Luisa, are far more than that, because they assume certain of those characteristics, but their principal characteristics, and particularly the mask, they make it, they show that it has more and more exciting origins, and its more exciting origins are principally they thought for a long time that the origins were Yoruba, and that somehow or another the Santiago, the small saint, represented Shango, and that the battle between the Vejigantes and the Caballeros, the wire screen masks, represented a battle between the Moors, Vejigantes, and the Spaniards, the Caballeros. But most of that is the Hispanophilic cultural imaginings, because once again, the use of the carved Vejigante mask, using the coconut to create it, strikes me as being the for Puerto Rico at least, one of the most unique and important representations of the Congo Bantu culture and bringing carved wooden masks to the Caribbean, where people, generally speaking, denied the kinds of tools they would have had in their homeland are now using the materials and the tools made available to them in a new land.
That's,
So
yeah,
that's the thumbnail. That's the thumbnail version of it all. But
I think that was pretty thing, and it's very good for us that you took that particular line in relation to the way in which you categorized the different masquerades in terms of material. I think that's very good class. I see Alana's hand was up. Go ahead, Alana.
Yeah, I have Lowell, I have two questions.
I hope I have two answers.
Okay, yeah, the first question might sound rather sharp the way I'm phrasing it, but I'm hoping maybe you just expound. You said, I caught half of the sentence when you had a picture of yourself playing with the mask on, the, I can't pronounce it, Behigantes mask, and you said, everything I do is Behigante, even though it's not. So why would you say that? That's my first question.
Did I say even though it's not?
No, you didn't say.
I became, and Raul can confirm this, I became you noted for, not famous, noted for making these large cardboard dragon masks and mounting them in political processions in Puerto Rico. Okay, it is my political take on the Behigante. So I would always, in almost every workshop I would do, I would somehow or another try to interject a dragon mask, a large Behigante mask. When I was working with children, I would take one that I've already made in cardboard and let them paint it. Okay, or working with other people, I would make the large dragon while they were working on their masks, which was the case in Jacmel, IT. So what I mean is that everything I do, and if you permit me just a second to show you something. Raul has seen this on the internet. But for a particular video, I just finished this mask. Okay. And so
Is that coconut shell?
I just shot a video with this being the final mask of the video. And it is, even with the snake-like piece of driftwood down the middle, and its different eyes and things, it is not a Luisa or a Ponce Behigante, but it is, for me, very definitely a Puerto Rican Behigante mask. Okay, and it had a different function in this particular video, but in a sense, all of the masks, particularly the mask I carve from wood, are in some way or another the self-portraits. Perhaps that's why I don't want to part with them, and my wife keeps saying we're running out of walls. You have to sell some. You have to sell some. I say no, nobody's going to. But I don't want to sell them, okay? Because they're all parts of me, and they're all parts of Vehigantes. There's a certain enigma inside all of this that I don't try to explain. The attraction of the Behigante, the mask itself. Why I've become so close to so many of the artists and artisans who make Behigantes, and why I feel at home in that community of Luisa marching down the street. I'm not Catholic. I'm not religious. So why am I marching beside a saint? And sometimes playing a viejo, an old man character with a good friend of mine who's a famous painter, and we do that together. Why do I feel at ease, if not at home, at ease in that situation where so many people would feel I don't try to explain this. I simply accept it and go with it. But I've marched. As you can see from the photos, I've marched all over the Caribbean, taking in carnivals, trying to go back 2 and 3 times to get the right shots. I did not get back to Kariakou. I could not budget that before for one shot in the book. I couldn't budget that. And I can't part from Puerto Rico during Christmas time for enough to get new shooting of Jean Canu characters, which I would love to do, but it's very difficult to leave family in Puerto Rico at Christmas time. So I mean there are limitations, but I try to go everywhere, but you can't go everywhere. And somewhere or another you have to draw the line and say, I have to go with this. But there's much more. Later today, I'm part of a panel that has 2 brand new situations. The Congo and the Diablos of Colón, Panama, and the Diablos of an indigenous group from Costa Rica, the Borucas, so they're talking. I mean, that at 6 o'clock today that takes place. So it's just trying to get as much in as you can. But in each case, I think in all of these things I look at, there's a vejigante quality. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry.
No, I so appreciate that, and I'm hearing like a little bit of the aesthetic.
I can't hear you.
So,
Alana, I can't
can
hear
you hear me now? Can't hear me now?
He needs to
No.
put back on his headset.
Put back on your
It is,
headset.
So it's me.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
now I can hear
I
you
just,
now. I put on
I'll-
masks and took off earphones. Yeah.
yes, I'll be brief. But yeah, I'm hearing it could be also the aesthetic that's coming through no matter what you make. I'm hearing also like this vejigante mask, you know, the cultural role, the social role of protest and irony. I'm hearing those kind of things. So thank you for expounding. My second question, because I have never seen this, I'm not familiar. What kind of sound, if any, or music accompanies the march of this mask on the road? Is there a drumming involved? Is there chanting involved? You know, and that element of performance, if you can talk about that. Thank you.
Can we go to the video? Can we go to the Luisa video?
Yes, is that the first one? Which one? Which one is it?
It's the 2019 Luisa video. Can we go to that?
Okay, I'm seeing.
I think it's probably the last one. It's the last one of the list I gave you.
Okay, let me check. 1 second. Do you know the name offhand?
I think it's the Fiestas of Santiago Apostol, the 2019.
Fiestas of Santiago.
Yeah, 2019.
Okay, let me see. I had it lined up. Is it Durango? Fiestas de Papa.
No, Fiestas it would be of Santiago Apostol or of Luisa.
Okay, I'm just getting what you sent me again. I had it. I have the other 3 lined up, so I have to get that one back. Right, can you tell me your name again? Fiestas de Santiago. I'm seeing Papa Schiaro Durango. Is it that?
No Durango. The should be 2019.
So just Fiestas de Santiago 2019.
Yeah.
Familia Casas Cabrera, that one?
That I don't remember.
All right, I'll just show it and tell me if it's that. Okay, tell me if it's that. Is it this?
No.
Okay, tell me the name again. Fiesta de Santiago.
Fiesta de Santiago. Loíza 2019.
All right, Loíza 2019. This one here?
Yep, that's it.
This here, right?
Yep. Okay.
Tú que me decías que Yayabo no salía más. Tú que me decías que Yayabo no salía más. Yayabo está en la calle con su último detalle y su ritmo sin igual. Yayabo ya salió. Yayabo ya salió. Que Yayabo ya salió. Yayabo ya salió. Bomba. Yayabo ya salió. Yayabo está en la calle y mi bomba se botó.
Can you hear my voice over this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, but this is a famous song. It happens to be by Ismael Rivera, el planero mayor de Puerto Rico. References a situation in Cuba, not in Puerto Rico, about two fighting towns, the Jayabo, brother that tried to not permit Jayabo to come out into the carnival. But Jayabo, the town, they broke through the barricade and came out to play carnival that year. So it's a carnival-related song. Ismael Rivera is one of the most celebrated tornadoes the songwriters, composers, the 1950s and 60s in Puerto Rico. It's played to bomba, because it's a bomba. The beating you hear behind it is the bomba, which is characteristic of Loíza, Marilis, bomba music has a rough relationship to the fiesta.
Con la bomba, bomba, gala, la calle se botó, yo te digo. Yayabo ya salió, Yayabo ya salió.
Something called the Carretón Alegre, the happy, literally the happy or the joyous cart that goes through the fiestas playing tape Caribbean music from all over. Not only Puerto Rico, but from the Dominican Republic, from Cuba. You can hear reggae, it's the Caribbean in general. Generally speaking, the music associated with Loíza and the fiestas is bomba. Even though the music that is in the fiestas itself is traditional Puerto Rican music called danza. At some point or another, someone thought they could raise the level of the fiestas by sticking danza alongside of it, perhaps counteracting the so-called cruder music of bomba. But it is bomba. It is the music of Luisa, and it's the music of the fiesta. Does that answer Alana's question?
Yes, thank you.
Can you take questions while we watch this as well? Any other questions?
Tú que me decías que ya vos no salía más. Tú que me decías que ya vos no salía más. Ya vos está en la calle con su último detalle y su ritmo sin igual. Ya voy a salió. Ya voy a salió. Que ya voy a salió. Ya salió bomba. Ya voy a salió. Ya voy está en la calle y mi bomba se botó.
Okay, I think we can then go to the first video, the one that is Teddy Vasquez and the Teddy Vasquez and Wilder Cruz.
Let's just ask if there are any questions meanwhile, while we're setting up.
Hi,
Any other questions?
Hi, I had a question. It kind of follows from Alana's question, right? Do any of these
Somebody has, sorry, somebody has a dog?
Yeah, do any of these, it may be Caribbean Yard Campus. Yeah, that's
Oh,
really
it's
what my
Caribbean Yard
question
Campus,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, one of you will have there.
All right, Nandi.
No, no, not me.
Well, all right, let's just all mute. Yeah, make sure while they speak. Yes.
The question is, do any of these masks peak? For example, like the Midnight Rubber mask in Trinidad, the Baby Doll mask, like we spoke about the making of the mask itself, but in terms of oral traditions and because what we saw was basically the procession. If the mask stops, is there a performance or a sound like Alana asked, or an oral tradition that comes forth when the mass sort of stops?
Okay. This procession has two elements. The procession itself revolves around the saint, Santiago Apostol. Okay, he travels from the town roughly 3 miles out to where he was originally found by fishermen. And he travels there 3 times because the fishermen found him, took him to the church. He escaped from the church and went back to the cork tree where he was found. And this repeats itself 3 times. So there's a different procession on each day. There are also three different the images of the saint, but the original one, what we call here a Santo de Palo, the original carved wooden saint, is the last day, the most important procession, and it's the real thing. Okay, so that's one element, and there is a group that carries this saint. They carry it on a like a litter, right, on their shoulders, and they carry it those 3 miles. And around them are particularly devoted people, and you saw it one place in the video where they're tying ribbons on this little saint. So people do this process, and that's supposedly the sacred part of the procession. In front of that saint, used to be behind, but now over the years it's changed from being behind to being in front, are the profane characters. The caballero, who is the wire screen mask, fancy dressed, the vejigante, who is the trickster diablo, the loca, and you don't see many locas here. And there may be a reason for that. The cross-dressed, the character, and the viejo or the loco. You don't see many of those here either, and there are particular reasons for that as well. Because the video is partial. It's edited to look at certain things. But those are their roles. None of those characters speak. There's no as well as being in comparsas and with the vejigantes making a sound when they run. Okay, and certain songs that are sung by the people around them about the vejigantes and the caballeros. There is no speaking function besides their presence in the procession. It's not like a baby doll comparsa where someone goes through the crowd and picks out somebody and says, "Look at the baby, look at the baby, look at the baby. It looks just like you. It looks just like you. Okay, you're the father of this baby." There's no that sense of comparsa is not present at any time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not saying that there's an absence there. It's simply that is not the function of these characters.
In fact, just to note that the movement, in fact, is quite similar. That fast movement through the streets is quite similar to the Haitian rara.
Yeah, it's very close. It's very close to the raras. Yeah,
Rara,
very close to that.
Yeah, so that's another type of mass formation, mass presence.
Okay, the drumming that Alana asked about, it doesn't go the joyous cart of music travels with the procession. The traditional band, the municipal band playing dances, goes behind the procession. But the drumming itself doesn't accompany the procession. The drumming comes at the very end of the procession. The people who are the procession enters into the world of bomba at the end of procession. They are greeted by drums. Okay. Does that answer the? I don't know.
Yes, it does.
That question came from Ria. That's the best I can do on that. I would say, I mean, to put it in these terms, I would say the function of the vejigante, as well as to demonstrate its force, its energy, its sense of resistance. It's also to make contact with and release what we can call generically the egungun function of carnival, to allow the those who no longer have bodies to live through the movement, the action, the energy, the sensuality of the Vejigantes. That's probably the kind of overarching spiritual function of the Vejigantes from my point of view. Okay, other people might say something different, but that's how I look at it.
Okay, we just have another few minutes before we move into the other presentation. So I want to make sure that we take all comments and questions.
Okay.
Well, at this point. Yes.
I have one more, sorry.
No, great.
Because I noticed things like the dolls. Can you talk just even briefly, Lowell, about the role and the function of these dolls?
What dolls?
I'm calling them dolls. But because that's what they look like to me, and they were in different fabrics adorned by different fabric. What can you say about those?
It was always thought that the caballero, the wire screen Spanish character, could only be played by in a sense the more bourgeois members of the community, because the costume was so expensive, because they have the fancier cloth, little mirrors all over it, so that the costume maker was going to invest a whole lot more money, and was going to ask more from the person who played the caballero. And that the Vejigante was, to a certain extent, like the pichipachi, you know, the tiritas, the pieces of different colored cloths spread all over, almost as if they were covered with, like the plantain leaves in Haiti, almost as if they were part of the maroon or cimarron, the maroon or cimarron population, that they would be covered with the pieces of cloth, leftovers. But obviously it's not so easy to get those kinds of pieces of cloth and leftovers anymore. So people are using the particularly colorful cloths to make this full, usually one-piece costume for the Vejigantes, with a different manta or cape that goes with it. Sometimes in Luisa, the Vejigantes still carry the baiga, but that has virtually disappeared from Luisa. But that one piece kind of the jumpsuit costume, spacious jumpsuit costume, is the typical thing. They used to say that it was built like that because the Vejigante imitated a bat, that his face was like a bat, and if he put out his hands like that, he could have wings and fly. But that I find that to be a rather broad speculation. It seems to me that a bat-like and bat-face origin for these Vejigantes strikes me as being somewhat overly prescriptive, taken from an archaeologist who understood the Taino or Arawak culture more than he understood the Afro-Puerto Rican culture.
Thank you for that. It actually, I don't want to take up too much time, but it wasn't a human performer that I was seeing. It literally looked like dolls, but I don't know the size of them. They were like on the truck or something that I was seeing, and there were many of them.
Okay, that's the Carreton Alegre. That's the music wagon, and he has all of those dolls arranged. So he imitates all the figures of on that particular music wagon. So there's a man with a large bicycle in front, and all of the digital music that they play goes through the entire fiestas, and he literally has a mini museum of dolls and images and photos, and I have some of my things remarkably appear on that cart because of things I've photographed or done over the years. So it's that's a relatively new addition to the fiestas, but a very important one, having that carretón alegre, that music wagon, accompany the performers, accompany the four performers. That's but very good observation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we go ahead just now, she's speaking about the dolls, but the other one where they were tying the ribbons, that one is a part of the tradition. And while talking about that, it reminded me of our La Divina Pastora, how they carry it. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, with that that tradition.
I'm not, but this would be characteristic of virtually any patron saints festivals.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire Caribbean. Except that this particular saint, they've built a special chapel, a special church just for this saint, because it can't be kept in the main church.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same as in Trinidad, how they have, and they give offerings of gold. I think they more do offering of gold. Where I saw the tiny ribbons, but I guess probably that means something.
Okay, no, it's the adoration of the saint itself. There are two other saints, because the 3 days. The first day is called the Santiago de los Hombres. And that's a plaster Paris saint they added to the fiesta sometime in the mid to late 19th century. And then there's a second day, and that's Santiago de las Mujeres. And that's also a plaster Paris saint, the typical Catholic saint that they added perhaps at the very end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century. But this little one that you saw that they were putting the ribbons on, that is hand-carved wooden saint, probably from the late 18th, very early 19th century. As I said, that's the real thing. That's the original saint that the fishermen were supposed to have found under the cork tree at the initiation of the ceremony. People put the dates of that at different times, but you have to say that in Puerto Rico, as in the Dominican Republic, as in Cuba, to a certain extent in Jamaica as well, the Africans began arriving in Puerto Rico in 1493. They were on those boats. And there was already a large Latino, Spanish-speaking African population in Puerto Rico at the very early, the 16th century. There was a revolt by Ladino Africans in Puerto Rico in 1511, 1512. So there was a Spanish-speaking African population in Puerto Rico from the very point of the European invasion. They were part of that invasion. The Africans directly coming from Africa did not come until 1518 or 1519, when they began to replace the dying Taino population. But they were, generally speaking, the creolized, made, literally in that case, made Catholic. And that cultural development did not change until the end of the 18th century, when, because of the Haitian Revolution, the Puerto Rico re-inaugurated a sugar industry. And the sugar industry at the end of the 18th and the beginning of the 19th century needed
African
workers. And that population is a population that, generally speaking, broke the British, the blockade, and made it to Puerto Rico, usually Cuba first, and then back to Puerto Rico. And it's principally a population that is the Congo Bantu. And that population brought new traditions with it. And those new traditions are probably, because there's no definite recording of any of this, probably the resulting in most of the characteristics that we now still see in the fiestas of Santiago Apóstol. The saint may have existed earlier. The processions of Santiago Apóstol may have existed earlier, but the vigilantes, the caballeros, the loca, and the viejo, el old man, they certainly seem to be part of the population of the enslaved workers that arrived in the last decade of the 18th century and the first 3 decades of the 19th century. So the record from 1830 onward is quite clear. What happened before 1830 is generally speculation. But roughly what we're seeing here is a product of 2 traditions coming together and fusing sometime around between let's say the 1795 and 1830.
Right. Thank you so much, Lowell. I mean, what that certainly
you told me
reminds us of the.
You told me I could come back sometime and we could do
we
could do a matchmaking workshop. Is that still on, or did I bore them to death so much that you never want to see me again?
We have a segment in December, in November really, where we do supplemental workshops.
Okay.
Skills that people want to.
I can't say that I really met you. But it was a great pleasure doing this for you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And speaking to at least some of you and answering your questions has really been great.
I'm sure there are a lot more questions.
So Raul has my email. If there's anything that comes up, let him know, and you can write to me directly. So this format gives me the jitters a little bit, but we have to live with it for a while longer, maybe for much longer. Who knows? We may decide that this is superior to the previous forms of communication, but it certainly is more expansive, which is the good part of it. So the good peace.
Thank you so much.
Health, love
Thank
to
you
all.
so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
Sharing your time with us. Yes. And I'm sure you'll be back.
Okay, you guys are going right into the next one. I can stay for the next one.
Yeah, sure. Do please.
Okay, well, I'm
please,
going to stay. I'm going to stay on.
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah.
Okay,
We have a
okay.
great guy, Keith Simpson. Keith is a bit of everything. He's involved with Steel Band. He's a member of the Panfrindigo executive. Calypso. In fact, I met him talking about Calypso, and of course the Mass Fraternity in Trinidad. So anyone who's so involved with Carnival as he is can tell us a lot about the cultural history of the place and the phenomenon that we call Carnival, as well as about communities of Carnival, right? The kinds of communities that we have in Trinidad. So I don't want to take up too much of his time. Namdi, we have a video.
Yes, I have a video, yeah.
Right? Keith, would you like us to start with the video which introduces you? or you plan to use it during the course of your talk? You need to unmute. Keith, you need to unmute. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yeah. Would you like to start the video?
We could start with with the dance and then probably
yeah, just to show them
some of the
about who you
costumes.
are. That speaks better than all of us.
Some of the costumes.
You want to go with the video?
I have the video on my end. Yeah, I just have the video.
Yeah. Yeah, just shoot it. Yes.
All right, is it this right? I want to make sure this is.
Yeah.
Roll, you're muted.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but that shows us a little bit of what Keith can do. I'm sure a few years ago you'd have seen him go much lower down.
Yeah.
Don't blame it on the COVID.
Yeah.
If I go down low, no, I will.
You can't come back up.
With the costume on your back. That was 2020.
I'm not sure. No, that was earlier.
No, that was Carnival 2020.
Oh, that was 2020. Okay.
But I did
a couple of them.
When we did a tribute to different tunes, right?
Okay.
For Tune Boy. So I decided to do London Bridge is Falling Down. And of course, a little satire on England when Edward left and he went with Miss Simpson, maybe an aunt of mine, and the Bacchanal and Princess Margaret coming down with the current Bacchanal. So you'll see the costume. He had one of the towers needed. And that basically was it. Put a little humor in it. The English people who were there, the night we had the judging the Wednesday, and I read the script, they started to shake my hand. I don't know. It's a London Bridge is falling down, you know. So it was good. So that's what we do as a fancy sailor. So first thing, Royal Gibbons, thanks for having me. Cultural activist, well known. Thanks for having me. Yes, I have been in the fancy sailor mass for many years, about 25 years. And I'm also been involved in PAN for the past 50 years. I'm the vice president of PAN Trinbago and involved in other organizations. But the sailor mass is close to my heart because I as a little boy sitting down in the bleachers, I would be attracted to the sailor mass, especially this one's now. So that when I got the opportunity, well, then obviously I jumped into it. I started playing with a band called Boss, Belmont Original Style Sailors, which came out of Jason Griffith. And then in 2013, we decided to form our own band, Belmont Exotic Style Sailors. We are known as the best, you know. So I love the fancy sailor mass, and until I cannot play again, I will play the fancy sailor mass. So again, I will do my presentation, and anytime during my discourse, could stop me and ask questions. I'll do a little historical because from 1919 is the first carnival as we knew it. 1919 is what we call the Victory Carnival after the 1914, 1918 World War I. And the mass was shifted from downtown Broadway up to the Savannah. And they had catered for the upper class because when it reached there, we had the Mrs. Cannons and the Mrs. Hendersons and so with the Lorry Mass. So the upper class, they played on the trucks. And in the night, Carnival Monday night, they had a big parade around the Savannah. So that was a division between the upper class, and it was sponsored by the Trinidad Guardian newspapers. Whereas, and so eventually the other types mass came into. Now traditional mass, different from the other mass. As someone playing traditional mass, when you put on your costume, you become that character. When you put on your sailor outfit, you become that sailor, you dance. When you play Indian mass, you become that Indian, you have your speech. When you play a minstrel, you sing. Baby doll, all these characters. So that is the difference between the traditional mass and the other type mass that we have, the mass without clothing. So as I go along, I have my notes here, but also refer to it, and I said that you could ask questions as we go along. Different authors have different timelines with respect to the sailor mass. Some said between 1834, 1859, 1885, the sailor was on the road. But the sailors were originally white sailors. White sailors. The fancy sailor or the king sailor mass. Diamond Jim Hardin from Belmont, as a Belmont boy. Ron, you would know that name very well, and Jason Griffith.
Yeah, man, of course.
Yeah. He started to use a merino over the head and cut the holes and the mouthpiece. And one day he just looked and he saw an ice cream cone. And they started to put the cone on the nose. And they used to call me Suck My Nose Sailor, because there was a calypso in 1953, Madeleine Ory. Da, 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 suck my nose, suck my nose. And we had the advent of the nose. But as it advanced, the change from the cone to butterflies, to birds, to different things. And sometimes the nose will be part of the mass. Now, when they are making the mass, they will tell you, no, as you know, the mass would have been made in secrecy. So a band, you will know what nose the band coming with next year. So they play bird this year, next year may come with butterfly and the nose. So the mass started to evolve. And eventually, it came to the cotton head mask, the small headpiece, before it come into the current thing. We had some bands, I just called some of the names: USS Savannah, USS Delaware, Mischief, USS Bad Behavior, USS Reliance, Texas, and so on. These were some of the early bands that came out. Now, a lot of secrecy surrounded the fancy sailor, the king sailor mass. As Jason Griffith was said, as a young fella, he would try to get in because he was attracted to the mass, to get in to see how they were making the costumes. And Jim Hardin would not allow you into the mass camp, but he persisted. Eventually, Jason, who is still around, he's about 90 years old now, as far as I know. He said that eventually they let him in. And he started to make the costumes. And when they made one, he would make two. So from very early on, he was involved with the sailor mass. Jason, he's a gem, responsible for the rebirth of the fancy sailor mask, because he brought out bands from 1980 to 2000, 31 years. And in those years, his band did well in competitions in the Savannah and downtown, even won downtown. So it graduated, it improved until we have, in 1953, we had a band playing crabs. All the members, or most members in the band, had a crab on the head. Fortunately, I have a DVD of 1950 Carnival with the crabs coming through Port of Spain. So that basically, it is said, was probably the beginning of what you call the head mask. I know a lot of bands from Belmont played fancy sailor and ordinary sailor. While Belmont would have played the fancy sailor, the other bands like St. James, like Tripoli and Invaders and so, they played the other type mask, the white sailor mask, right? The fancy sailor, the king sailor, represents what we say, carnival, art and dance, grace, costume. Peter Minshall, the great designer and band leader, in a magazine written in Carnival 1988, of which I have a copy, states that his favorite mask of all traditions is the fancy sailor, and goes on to state that this type of mask and its zenith remains today one of the most surreal indigenous expression ever to come from the islands. This is documented in a book by Jerry Saran, who made a very bold statement. The sailor is bell bottoms, not bare bottoms. And that is what these sailors represent. Errol Hill, in his book Trinidad Carnival, states that in 1907, the USS Alabama came to Trinidad, and he said the following year, 1908, there was a replica of the USS Alabama on the road, which would have more or less started the military mass, which some of the bands played. This is the ordinary sailor mass, which they would have played. They'd have come on the road with tanks and boats and aeroplanes and pilots and different sailors, right? Yeah, like other types of masks, the fancy sailor has king, queen, and what you call characters like us who will have the big costumes, and you'll have the ordinary players. The fancy sailor, his costume would be, of course, his well decorated costume. He will have his hat, captain hat. He will have his costume and his backpack. In the old days, the costumes used to be carried on their head when the material was heavier, a lot of heavy wire and cardboard and so. But now we use a lot of lighter materials. The sailor, fancy sailor, will also have the stick, the gloves. Some will have the pipe. King sailor will have a sash. So basically that is the costume of the fancy sailor and his implements. His dance, the sailor dance, a lot of it were mimicking like animals like the ostrich and the camel and so on. but the sailors have developed their own dance as they went along. Satsak is one, Mariko is another one. And I said that they would mimic animals and so in developing their dance. A lot of us who came on the scene learned from the older fellas like Austin Wilson and so. They dance, but they were not able to tell you what is the name of the steps that they do. So we as the younger ones, although we're not so young, we followed the steps and we dance. These are some of my costumes here. This is the wedding cake. This is music. This is from Boss. Again, this is recurrent part of Terry, a small part of Terry Evelyn's costume, Beauty in Perpetuity, with just a small part of it that year. That was in 2014 with the Boss. Many people have asked, why bell bottoms? Obviously, this was mimic from sailors, because a lot of the people, fellas who played mass, the fancy sailor, and we had the fireman. They worked on the Port of Spain docks, and they watched the habits. They watched when the sailors drunk, how they drift, and they took part of the dance on that. But the bell bottoms, a bell bottom pants, as you know, for those working on it, if not a scrub or anything like that, it was easier to roll up your pants than a normal pants. So that is one of the explanation we got to the bell bottom. Now, other than the fancy sailor, because the fancy sailor came out of, you had the people played flower black sailor, white sailor, or show in Hawaii, bad behaved sailor, where they will leave home on white and they will rub on charcoal on the ground. You have CBs, which means construction battalion. And they're the engineering force of the army. And some of the guys playing that mass, you'll see them with a oil can or a wrench or hammer in their hand. And these were the CBs. And that came to the fancy CBs. With respect to the music, in the early days, Jason will tell you, in the 40s, the fancy sailor, they played without music. They will come into town on Carnival Tuesday with a group of 6 or 8, and they will be singing adoption, like what they say, like what the Shango Baptist done. And they will also use the, I think it's the bladder of the cow. And I think I saw it with the Puerto Rican mass. And they will hit women with it and say, how you doing, baby? And talk in American and so. The brass bands, which were present at the time, they provided mass for more the historical bands and the lead bands and this type of bands. But when the sailor came on the road with music, they used the steel bands. So there's a symbiotic relationship between steel bands and the fancy sailor. And from one scene mass from the 1953, when I was just a 3-year-old and coming down, you would see the steel bands playing sailor. Steel bands would play fancy sailor, they will play white sailor, they will play CBs, they will play different type of sailor mass. And the thing is that the sailor mass would fit to the steel bands, because the steel bands at that time were not, if you listen to early recordings of bands say in the 50s, they were going at a tempo where you would chip. And this would have allowed the sailors to dance. Since that, as it is now, we fellas who are DJs. So now where the pan had ruled the road with mass, bands like Starlift, who came high in Band of the Year, with Nursery Rhymes and Undersea Kingdom, Desperados, Cult of the Leopard, and Noah's Ark, and so another band, City Syncopators, them 48s, and so they would have depended on the steel band to provide the music. That is not so now, because you hardly get steel bands on the road, Carnival Monday and Tuesday. So we have tried to contract steel bands. We were fortunate for 2 years to get the Renegades Youth Steel Band, who played for half of the Tuesday. But other than that, we have to depend on the DJ. Some of the famous steel bands that we had, I said, was 1953 Crabs, Johannesburg Fascinator, Zodiac, Starlift, Undersea Kingdom, Cito Velasquez, Flowers and Fruits in 1959, which was one of the better productions of our Fancy Sailor Band. Part of it was destroyed in 1959 when there was a riot between two steel bands. He did Signs of Good Taste, Nature's Notebook in 62, Disney Funnies. Other noteworthy presentations, Yuletide Season, bands made musical instruments, Watch and Clocks, another popular one, and Fascinators, Ensigns, and the Commonwealth in 1957. So that was some of the well-known or better presentations by bands. Unfortunately, there are just a very few Fancy Sailor bands. Our band in the north, Exodus had tried it, and there's one band in south. Other than that, it's just 2 or 3 bands that play Fancy Sailor Mass or King Sailor. All Stars, they continue to play Fleets in, which have been playing from about 1947 or so. And they are still on the road. Other than that, as I said, the steel bands no longer bring mass. It is the Tribe and those other bands like that. We are still trying to ensure that this type mass exists in the absence of sponsors, because as you know, sponsors do not invest money in small bands. And in my trying to get sponsorship from an alcohol company, they tell you often that the big bands are the one who could buy, product by the hundreds of thousands. We certainly cannot, So we are trying our best to continue to ensure that the Fancy Sailor live. The only thing is that those of us who play sailors are in the late 50s, 60s, and 70s. We are hardly getting young people who are encouraged to play this type mass. And it goes the same for other type of traditional mass. when we look at the age of the people who play minstrels, baby dolls, things like that. It's the older age people, the Indian mass, you know. So we are the last, and we are hoping that we would continue to survive until we cannot survive again. Okay, so if you all have any question, comments, you could ask me now. I'm open for any questions or comments.
Mr. Simpson, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for coming. And you said it and I missed it. What is the materials that you typically use now for the, not the costume on the body, but what you're wearing on the heads for the fancy sailor masks? Is the cardboard?
There's a very light material which is used for the sole of your sneakers, which is very, very light. I think it's called Everfoam. And that material is used. We use wire, on cloth, of course, we use plastic. Basically, this is what we use to try the costume well, as light as possible to use it. In the old days, it would be cardboard and heavier wires, but as it is now, we try to make the costume as light as possible. Fiberglass is also used. And use material. Okay. On the performance, I see there were 3 notes there. One, which I will comment on the rituals. Now, I know for people who play and haven't spoken to them who play devil mass, like they play Satan and Lucifer, right? We don't have much of that again, but they will tell you, or even dragon, or even an imp, or even Beelzebub, that they will fast for a period of time before they go and they portray Satan and Lucifer and Beelzebub and these demons and so. Again, our mass doesn't have any type of speech, which they had in the 40s and so. It's more dance. The sailors, the fancy sailor masses dance. And unfortunately, I don't think that it is being taught in schools or anything like that. I know that deceased Austin Wilson used to teach, go to schools through the ministry and teach his skills, sailor dance. But even now, if you see a sailor band like ours, you would not see the majority of, some of us learn by looking at things. I look at videos from the old days. I have a lot of, that is what I do, archive a lot of carnival material. And I learned to dance from the older guys and from old recordings of carnival and so. So it is not being taught.
In fact, Keith, this is one of the opportunities we felt where we could share the dance, you know, with some with our students. Just a few steps.
That is.
You have on your costume.
Well, I put on one and I had about 2 or 3 on display there.
Right.
I hope you'll be able to see me.
Well, yes.
Oh, God.
And I'm sure all of us are eager to learn, especially Alana. We can't see your feet though.
Oh, I'll have to put it lower down.
Yeah, you have to pick up your feet.
Well, I can't see what. Are you seeing it?
Not really. We've seen your legs.
I'll have to push this on more back. Are you seeing?
All right, yeah, we can do it. Yeah, we're not actually seeing the feet, but we could still work with that.
Let me see if I can Yes, sir.
All right.
Right.
That's better.
So the sailor, you will see them do the slow trip. And you will see them. And you will see they give me the jump waist. And you will see. And then it have the finny hand. Slow trip. Right, like this.
Nice, 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 nice. Anybody ready to try it?
Somebody steps without music.
Yes, June, real stylish.
Huh?
You know, we had a comment here that the sailor move real stylish.
Oh, as I said,
Yes.
steps, and as you go along, you watch at we watch at the older guys.
Well, you're moving quite youngish. It's good. You moves very young.
That's empty one.
I don't like how we say there's the last. I didn't like that part when he says the last. That kind of
Empty one, yeah.
yeah.
No, but the thing is that I don't know. We have to try and although I must say the regional carnival committee, they teach all the different types of traditional masks. And anyone who come out on a carnival Friday, you will see the parade which starts from Memorial Park, Victoria Avenue, and round the bridge. And that is only traditional mass. So you will teach them how to dance, how to flutter like the bats, how to do the Indian speech, baby doll, all this, the borokit. So I was involved with it, with the regional carnival, and they go to every single part of Trinidad and Tobago. So, but I don't think they teach the dance, no, the sailor dance, you know, because they don't have many people out there who could.
I want to show, I'm trying to find when you talk about the elders.
Yes.
A clip here with Ralph Diet. I'm trying to find it, okay?
Yeah, that is one of them. Austin Wilson was another one.
Yeah.
Austin died. I don't know. I haven't seen Ralph. I heard he was sick, so I don't know.
Yeah, let me see if I can get this video
Yeah,
up.
Ralph played mass with us. Austin played mass with us. Cooper.
Yeah. Are you seeing this?
Yes. And one of our sailors passed away last week, Albert Sandy.
Ah.
Yeah, he was one of our sailors. Yeah, I've seen that there. But he's still on the walker.
Yeah, but it's to show how the passing on, you know, look.
Yes.
He's on a walker, eh?
Yes.
But he's still doing this thing.
Yes.
And the other sailors come out to greet him, you know?
Wilson.
It's a beautiful moment.
This was where?
This was at Old Yard up on campus.
Oh.
I'm not sure what year because I just got it from, I wasn't there at the time.
Well, you see, too, they don't invite us, our band, to some of these things, you know.
Yeah.
Got one or two guys who could. The guy in blue who plays with us, that is Austin Wilson's nephew. And you know, I'm sure that if it's to demonstrate or speak about it, we could to the school children when we return to normal.
Last year, okay, Christy Marie.
Yeah. But we are willing to impart our knowledge, the dance and so on. As I said, because even with the kids on the street, you know, they had the stick in their hand and that's about it, no dance or nothing like that. So, and we have tutors who are paid for doing the job, you know, for imparting the knowledge to the community centers and schools, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but who builds your costumes, the headpieces?
Okay, we have like our band leader, Ansel McLean. he sews he's a tailor by trade. And he sews, he brings out about 2 or 3 sections from up in Belmont there. Nickname is Long Dab. So he will bring out 3 sections and he would sew all through Christmas until Carnival. And sometimes Carnival Tuesday, he will join the band late because a fella come and wanted an outfit and he would sew. So he does it and he brings out about 3 sections. Our designers, Robert Miller and Martin Luby. Robbie is well known. They used to design the bands between 1980 and 2000 for Jason Griffith and design Kings and so on. And we have Glendon Morris. He builds some of the individuals. Like he built over the past few years, I've been playing individuals. He would build those individuals because he's very good and he's very meticulous and he loves it. He Old Man Morrison. So we have other fellas bring a little section here and a section there. So, but Ansel he brings most of the thing, and then I say Glendon done a lot of the bigger costume, the characters. And like other bands, we try to have a king, a queen, and those of us who have the big costumes, what you call characters or individuals, we go up for competitions on the Wednesday night at Adam Smith Square before Carnival. And then you have the ordinary floor members will come in a sailor outfit and a little sailor cap and a pale band and they jump in.
Okay, but this is one of the masks that you have to have a.
So hold on a minute. Hello, Javier. Hello. And I'll tell her call you, right? And I'll meet him. Right. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, just emphasizing that this is one of the masks that you have to have perform. You have to perform. Yes.
Yeah. It's dance. It's costume.
Dance, very much dance. And,
costume.
So people who are interested in that could, we could find out a bit more and we could practice. Any questions to Keith before we close this?
And you see the people could decorate their own costumes too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question.
When I heard Marvin, I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay,
let
all
her go
right.
ahead,
Elise and then Marvin.
Yeah. Earlier on, you said that the sailor used to speak, but they just end up stopping due to whatever reason. But what reason was that what you think that they stop?
Yeah, the sailors used to, from what Jason interviewed with him, said that before they had the big sailor bands, they will come on the road with 6 or 8 of them, right? And they will have the cobblad and they blow it up like a balloon. And they will hit women with it and they will do the little speech, how are you going, baby and darling, and so on. But have no music. But from the time they got the music and a steel band, that would have come out with it. But then
see what's going on inside. Just give me the ball.
Hello.
Yeah, Prasanna, I think you need to mute. All right, okay. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, and the sailor masses now they dance. They have no speech. The speech will now go to the midnight robber. The Indian will do a little something, But the Peruganad, he will give a little speech, and basically that's it. When we have speech with sailors again, it's just the dance which is most pronounced in the mass, and your costume, the dance and your costume.
So the change would have come through the change in the music.
Yeah, because from the time the music came, because they want to go there with groups,
Yeah. Okay.
The music came in the mid-50s or so. 50s.
Marvin?
Yeah. A lot of questions. So would you say the music, because I know you mentioned it's dying, the tradition is dying. The music itself, the type of music that we have now. I know you mentioned we're moving away from the pan and the sailor was kind of synonymous with tying with the pan. Are you?
It was.
Huh?
It was.
Right. So so where we have all these big truck now and the power soaker and whatever, are you saying that that is part of what is killing the tradition? Because I'm hearing from you as well that the sailor is the sailor master, the fancy sailor, is the costuming as well as the dance.
Yeah.
So in order to get the package, you need the music.
Yeah, well, the thing is that since we cannot get a steel band to come on the road on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, because remember we on the road Monday and Tuesday, because on Monday they will judge your individuals in the savannah and so, and you have to be judged both days, right? We have no alternative but to recruit a DJ.
Right.
No alternative. And what we do when we contract a DJ, and it's very expensive, 40, 50,000, you have to give him a play sheet, a selector of tunes that you want him to play, but in between you hit your Marshall Montano and you want to break a foot.
Yes.
You see, when these steel bands are playing, when we listen to recordings of band playing things like Backbay Shuffle, Gina and Diana, My Pussin and these tunes, the calypsos sung by the calypsonians was slow. The music was not very fast, but then it had to pick up speed. It's picking up speed is very, very fast. So you have to get a DJ who is willing to play the type of music you want, because you still want some Sparrow and Kitchener and thing on the road. And you play a little All Stars who want the bass and the slow tempo, things like that. And you have to coax them. And then with respect to the sailor, one thing, the most people who play mass is the younger people and the women. And maybe about 80% of the masqueraders now are women. And those women, they want to put on a sailor outfit. The women now want the skimpiest thing with the bottoms and thing outside. So they're not coming to play no fancy sailor. So the females we have in our band, yes, around our age and things like that.
Another thing, the what leeway would you give to design for costume? How much do you stick to tradition, or is there a traditional thing that you have to stick with, in the sense that, so I would observe mass, and now we see mass as quantity, so it must be big. You can't move on the stage. You're pulling with wheels, and these kind of things. What is your take on that? Because usually when I see a sailor, a fancy sailor, like even what you were portraying, the pictures that you show us, there's no wheels. Everything is on your shoulder, on your head. What is your take on a float or something with wheels pulling?
Well, that is basically those bigger costumes like the king and queen now, who, I mean, like they judge costumes and the size, not on the content or the quality. Because if you go back to 1963, when we had the first king of the band, the queen of the band was before that. Colin Edgell won the first king of the band. You look at the fellas who won those coming down the road, and you will see, you mean the first even Peter Samuel won. It was not a big costume, right? And a lot of in those days, they carried the costumes on their shoulders, and then they allowed them to have wheels, because as a matter of fact, Colin Edgell was the first king of the band to be disqualified for having wheels, and then after they decided on wheels. So now you can have 3 wheels on your costume.
Yeah.
But we carry it on our shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
The occasions that we have a king, it would have been on wheels, because the guy, Martin Duby, played king, and he had to put his costume on wheels because the costume was big. But the other characters like us, we carry the costume on our shoulders for the day. Try to make it as light, big but light.
Mm-hmm.
So we use light materials.
Okay.
Got another question, Marvin?
That's it for now.
Okay, all right. Any, Alana?
Hi, I have one.
Or Chris Chelsea? Yeah. I thought I saw Alana's hand doing so.
So I know there are
Yes,
many
Chelsea.
different sailors in the band, right? How do you negotiate who gets to be the king sailor and the fancy sailor? Like, how does that hierarchy work?
Well, the king, most times is people who volunteer to play the king and those who have the money, right? There's two things there. The cost, which is expensive if you're playing a king, because you had to get the designer, you had to have the labor to build the frame and then to decorate. If you don't get anybody, like 2020, we did not have a king. We had individuals, right? But the person who's playing king, he will have to put out his money. We don't put it out. And he will have his designer. He will get his own people to do it. Like us who play the individuals and go for competition, we get our own builder, own designer. And we still, like most sailors, they also decorate, put additional decoration on the costume.
Got you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question or comment?
I have a question. I think it's probably a very silly question that most people in this room would know. So hopefully you'll go quick. Is traditional mass not taught as part of the public education system in Trinidad and Tobago?
No, it's not taught in schools, but I say the regional carnival committee teaches the traditional mass in some schools throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and they try to teach the history, and they try to teach, in fact, they encourage the kids to help in making the costumes. But it's more making the costumes than teaching the history. Because there's no way that no school itself that teaches mass or pan. Where a lot of schools have the thing, but we don't teach history. We don't even have I don't know if you have a proper history of Trinidad and Tobago. Far less for Carnival. You understand? It will be good if now there are many books, right? There are books that Rolly had put some reference books on thing, but there's like Michael Anthony did Carnivals of Trinidad and Tobago, 1839 to 2000, 2 volumes, and that chronicles Carnival Monday and Tuesday, Mass in Port of Spain, Mass in San Fernando, and other parts of Trinidad. So you could have an idea of what happened in those days. Then there's another book called 10 Action, the Trinidad Experience. And you have people like Don Batson, J.D. Elder, Burton Sankarali, Kalai Chang, and a lot of local Earl Lovelace, Kim Johnson, Gordon Rolia, on different aspects of the carnival. And this is very, very, So for carnival itself, there are different books, and it is Kim Johnson who did part 2 on the illustrated history of pan, which you'll see pictures of the fancy sailor. Because that is what the mass that was identified with the steel band, the fancy sailor.
Just to expand a little on that, to answer, in relation to Alana's question, no organized curriculum as such, if that is what is behind the question. A number of institutions who tackle the phenomenon of carnival from different points of view, from their own perspective, right? And within institutions, for instance, at the secondary school level, you can study Carnival through two syllabuses, two syllabi. One is the social studies syllabus, and the other one is the theater arts syllabus. So there are elements of Carnival that come into both of them, right? But there's no full curriculum. And of course, at the tertiary level, we have the creative arts, the Creative and Festival Arts Center, where there is a program called Carnival Studies. Right? You can study Carnival as part of your degree program. In fact, you can major in that. Mr. Valentine was the first graduate from that institution in Carnival. Right? He's in the first batch. So there's that. And then, of course, there's also at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, where you have a graduate program in Carnival. So it's different levels, okay, but not necessarily a full and consistent curriculum throughout the system. Yeah, so it's there.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, I want to say thanks very much to both our guests. All right, Laurel and Keith. Keith, thanks much for the board with us. All right. I think this was so important this afternoon. Laurel, in fact, showed us the unity. In fact, both presentations showed us the Carnival unity. I'm glad that Keith picked up the business about the bladder, use of the bladder, which we found both in
Puerto Rico.
No?
In the Puerto Rican mass.
And the Vihigante, yeah. You know?
I was reading up on it.
Yeah, and the business about really, I mean, the business about Carnival being used and mass in particular, being used as a form of recall of the past, which Lowell emphasized, and throughout the Caribbean, the celebration of creativity, people's creativity, popular creativity and autonomy. The fact that, as he mentioned, the Carnival is controlled unlike our traditional mass too, not by the state, but by the people themselves, the people of the community, right? So they come out, they bring out their mass. So that's a political statement. And of course, the Carnival being used for commentary. So it is always in that way contemporary. Again, this is what he emphasized, yes? And even if Keith had through, all of his costume, when he talks about London bridges falling down. Now, so you have a fancy sailor mass, and in that, you're getting the social commentary. Yeah? So these are all the elements that we find that have been in. And just to mention, of course, that, I mean, apart from making the mass, which is what we are doing in this course, and knowing about the traditions, I think what we got from this evening's both presentations as well is the importance of documentation, to go beyond knowing, to finding out, to preserving, okay, and passing it on. And that's a responsibility really that, and a vocation, it's really a vocation, is what people do, like Keith, who simply collected a lot of film on Carnival, all right? And not because anybody paid him to do it, he was not commissioned to do it, but he simply undertook that for the love of it. I think that's something that, we all need to, that sense of preserving what we have is something that we all need to learn from, okay? So thank you very much, Keith.
Okay, thanks.
But he will be with us again, okay? And I'll pass over to Val now.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Keith.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lovely was very good also. But you guys don't go away yet. We have some housekeeping for next week. I hope you got the stuff I asked you to walk with next week for me, the wire and so on. Now I have something else to add. I need something cylindrical. So what I have here, I just have a long piece of PVC pipe. Now, because you have to do circles and things with me, I have this because it's sturdy and you could keep this throughout the course. We have a lot of work to do. Now, if you cannot get this, and you have a paint can, you could still go around it, okay? Nothing must keep us back. And if you cannot get that, get a big bottle. If it's too soft, fill it with water. We need something to go around. As I said, when we hit the road, we keep going. And if you still can't get that, look what I have here, paper towels. You can't squeeze it too tight, so you have absolutely no excuse for having my stuff. But next week, now, I hope you've been getting the wire and so on. This is what I told you was the cutlass wire for those in Trinidad. You ask for cutlass wire and you get it. It's about 22 gauge a pump. Now, it's so nice when you have to do something and you go right ahead and do it in the hardware store. About an hour and a half ago, the Prime Minister announced that all hardware stores closed from today. So you'll have to look around to get your wire and stuff for me. You see, those in Trinidad, those outside will still get it. As I told you, Home Depot in the States, you can get the wire. Those in England, ask for aluminum wire. You have them on the roll. You have your gauges and so on. A 14 gauge or a 12 gauge for me. And we in Wales would be the same aluminum wire. Might be easier to get than the galvanized wire when you are outside. So
my neighbor line just now.
Boy, let me tell you something. As you mentioned your neighbor line, a Carnival Sunday, hustling some mass work, and I cut my mother's line to finish a costume, not knowing that she was in the back washing some clothes. Boy, she marched me up the road in Bath by the Chinese store to get back a wire for her. But all that was the fun in the thing, you know. But we need that. We need some stuff. Those templates I asked you to get. You see, the more we have, it will save some time, because remember, it's just 2 or 3 classes and we have to stick so much into it. Right? So we get going. We have that, get your pliers and so on. As I said, the type of pliers, once it's a cutting pliers and there's no size, it depends on your hand. Right? Men have larger hands, it would use no sense for you. Got a big one, you feel that at work, and you know, women with their tender hands can't wheel it. And right now we are not using that heavy wire. Anyway, we have 2 other sessions lower down when we do structures. We would need this. All these would ask you to get later on. So when you get your thing now, and what we do, let us face it. A lot of the wire work we do, the beautiful wire work, is hidden, because wire is a structural material. It's mostly used for the skeleton. And when you cover it, you hide the beauty. So in the first sessions, we are doing plain wire, but you keep that. And when we go down to a finish and thing, we would cover it. So nothing is wasted. And it's nice that you would have it in the raw, so you could put it, you know, in your portfolio and things like that. And Raul was correct in saying I was the first, and I like to blow my trumpet. I was the first person in the world to have a degree in Carnival arts, you know, because it was just 2 of us, and I finished first. So, and then I went to, that was the first degree. I went to UWI, and I have a master's in Carnival studies. So there are things happening, and Keith, you were right with the problem of it not being taught in schools, because there is a section in the A-level art where you could do work on, you know, on costumes and things, but then the teachers can't do it. I have gone to 1 or 2 of these schools, you know, and they don't know, so they'll ask me to come in, and I will do a little thing, because for your major project, you may want to do something in wire or something in Carnival. 4 teachers can help you. Those who know me, and I would go in, you know, and show them little thing. So that has really been a keeper.
Yeah. Okay.
One day and also, just another thing, with the regional. Half of the time with those regional tutors, they need help themselves.
I know, realize that.
That is one. They go to the school, they don't know what to do, and then everybody is not a teacher. And when you're dealing with kids, it's a different kind of temperament. But some
Yeah.
of us feel we know mask, okay, the boss, and we go in school with the attitude, and it sort of spoils the thing, you know? So you talk to them, we try to push in, and then the real major factor that keeping back the thing, you have to do, because I do a little of the history of whatever mass I'm doing with the kids, but most of them don't know it. And not only that, when they give you 3 weeks before Carnival to stick in the amount of classes, because they always talk about, you know, budget has just been passed and things like that. Sometimes time is what is preventing, you know, the tutors, even if they want to, from doing a proper course. But we try and we live in with what we have.
Yeah.
And
Well, but one thing I would like to say though, I try to buy somebody's speaking. When he's finished.
Somebody has the
what?
Michael. Yes.
Lawrence's mic.
We get a lot of feedback.
Yeah, no, what I want to say is that the I'm on?
Yes,
Can you
you're
hear me?
on. You're
Yeah.
on.
The I tried to buy put my hand on any book I could get on mass, right?
Yeah.
On anything local on the country.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of archiving because I buy the papers every day, the 3 newspapers. So I cut up stuff, Pan, Mass, Calypso.
Right.
I also do archiving for my old school Fatima. But the books which are issued in Trinidad, published in Trinidad, most of them only have one print. When those books are finished, you don't get a reprint, you know.
You're not going to get a reprint.
If you want to look for Errol Hill book, you won't get it. If you look for Michael Anthony's book, you would not get it. All these books. So I have been trying to through newspaper clipping, and I've had hundreds and hundreds of videotapes. And in the process of converting all of them now.
Right.
Read the bands and panorama and all these things.
Well, that's what we have to do.
The DVDs. You know?
Yeah.
So that's what
Chalky has some stuff too on Carnival, on the history of Carnival.
Yeah,
Chalky does have some books there.
I just donated hundreds of videotapes to the Carnival Institute there.
Right.
With Calypso tents and Calypso competitions. I tell them I hope they could put it to good use.
Well, we had a little problem even with the Carnival Institute, because I don't think they're doing what they're supposed to do since Pat Bishop left.
It's only I was to work with Pat. I was there with Pat.
Very
But
good.
When Pat left, all these programs she used to have and different things like that gone through. So there's nothing happening. There was nothing happening with it. And now they when him Kim Johnson is no longer there, this other guy is there.
So who is there? I thought Kim was still there.
No,
okay.
This guy from the Regional Carnival Committee, what's his name?
And I must talk about that because
yeah.
I didn't know Kim was still there because he was in Japan. But quickly, Diet is very ill.
Yeah.
He not as ill as he was. It's a remarkable recovery for him to come to where he is now. But he called me 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Every now and again he would call me, you know? So he's there. He's one of the old ones who are still there.
He played with us. He played with our band.
Yes, I know Ralph.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Is Marvin there?
Okay, thanks everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, see you all.
Before you all go, Marvin Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do I have a email for you? I keep sending and they keep coming back.
I also didn't get the email.
So those who don't get, if the email keeps coming, send it to, email me. Okay? Email me so I will have your correct email because I need to keep sending things. Okay?
Okay.
I sent you an email. I don't know if you received it.
Yeah, I think so. But you didn't get my stuff?
I haven't seen it. No.
Well, send me too. I will check it out, and I will do that by tomorrow. I'll make sure everybody gets. So that just about 2 or 3, some little spelling or something was going wrong.
Probably.
Okay, and we need to get going. So we had a nice class today.
Question.
We could only go from good to better. All right. So
Is
you
it
people enjoy your weekend? Yes.
Mass Carnival Valentine?
Yeah, maskanivalentine@gmail.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Valentine and I'm into mass. maskanivalentine@gmail.com. Okay then, you can't go wrong. So see you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Leave here.